Hey, paddle enthusiasts, welcome to Padel Smash Academy.
My name is Cez, paddle club owner and entrepreneur. Next to me is Julian, paddle master coach, and we're all about paddle. Welcome back, guys, to Padel Smash Academy, and today we're going to be talking about the history of paddle.
We get asked so many times, where paddle started and how it became so popular and all that. And we're going to give you a little bit of the background of how paddle became what it is right now. The most important thing is for you guys to know the history, because it's great to know how the paddle became what it is now and how it's going to go growing from here. We know that the paddle was created by Mr. Corcuera. He's a Mexican wealthy guy who built up the first paddle court in his house. How did he became to that? He was a crazy about tennis, and he wanted to build a tennis court actually in his house. And he had only 20 meters length by 10 meters width. So he actually created sort of like a mini tennis court on his house, right?
Yeah.
And he put a net in between, and he started playing tennis in this type of mini tennis park. He didn't, because with a tennis racket, he will be hitting too hard. He got from the United States platform tennis paddles, the very thin paddles for paddle tennis. And he started to play like that. And all his friends, and it was his summer home, people started loving the sport. And he started coming up with the rules and things like that. Some of his friends, they were from Argentina and from Spain. And then what happens is that the sports immigrated to those two different countries. But just to give you a little more of the background, he had the 20 meters in length, and the back wall was the neighbor's house, and the other back wall was the neighbor's house as well, the other side neighbor's house. So he started playing this type of, he called it initially paddle tennis. He started playing off the walls, right? And he started building some side walls as well for the vegetation not to come into the court. So he had some very small side walls and the back walls, and how the sports evolve. The first paddle court, so his friends took it to two specific places in Argentina and Spain. One, it was Marbella, which is sort of like similar to, let's say, to Miami, the place. It's a very holiday place where people from all over Europe go there to vacation. And Mar del Plata, which is also in the coast of Argentina, it's a very holiday place where everybody goes on vacation. And those are the first two courts in Argentina. In Argentina, it was built first in 1969 and in 1970, Marbella. Just to give you a little bit of the background, right now, Argentina has over 10,000 courts built, and Spain has over 20,000 courts built. What happens in the past 50 years is pretty crazy. And Argentina had in 1989, the sport became really started exploding all over the country, and because of the limitations of the walls and all that, it was very hard for people to watch it, because you can only watch it from the sides, because you have back walls and side walls made of cement. So one of my dear friends, actually, his name is Horacio Alvarez Clemente. He was the one which we're going now to Spain in the Madrid Paddle Tour. We're organizing a Madrid Paddle Tour where we're taking 12 people to play paddle in different academies. We're going to his academy, actually, to play paddle in his academy. He's an Argentinian former number one in the world paddle player and all that. And he was the one who created the first, what we call it, the Crystal Palace, which was an entire court made of crystal the way we know it now.
Right.
And that's the interesting part. And the way he financed that thing, he reached out to the CEO of Coca-Cola, which his name was, Mariano Rossi. He's a dear friend of mine. Actually, he was a CEO of Coca-Cola back in the late 80s. And he was the one who actually sponsored the first Crystal Palace, what is called back then, and created the first professional paddle tour in Argentina. Was the first professional paddle tour. And the funny part was that now they saw this niche where now you can watch paddle 360, because from every single view you can really actually watch and enjoy paddle. And Argentina had its first professional circuit back in the late 80s, early 90s, where all my friends that we grew up playing tennis, my background is tennis, they moved into paddle. And some of them, they became actually professional paddle players as we know it.
So let's talk about the changes, right, in paddle. You know, it first started in Mexico. I think it's became a lot more popular in Spain and Argentina than it is now in Mexico. But let's look at the gradual changes of the paddle court. You know, first it was a mini tennis court, right?
Correct.
And then maybe they put up some walls to avoid the ball from, passing over to the neighbors and keeping it in play. And is that where kind of platform tennis and paddle kind of evolved from, I assume?
I think a platform tennis was developed before Padel, and he made the walls. Corcuera made his walls just for the vegetation, not to come into the court. But then people and his friends start playing off the walls, and that's how we start evolving.
Gotcha. And then they started with cement walls, and then the flooring, I assume, was asphalt or cement, right?
Cement, yeah.
And the paddles or the rackets were, I think, made out of wood or.
Well, the actual platform tennis paddles, which are a little bit bigger, and they're very thin. But the difference between platform tennis that you play with a rubber ball, and where paddle, they started to play with a tennis ball, which was really, really heavy, and the vibrations were really heavy when you hit that ball with a very thin paddle racket. So actually, in 1989, the first rubber foam paddle to prevent vibrations was developed actually in Argentina. The brand is called, which it still exists, Sane. Which they manufacture paddles in Spain, in Argentina, and the rest of the world. Those were the actually first foam paddles that the sport was developed.
Wow. And so how did the balls change? I mean, they used a tennis ball first, I assume, and then was it bouncing too much or not enough? And did they have more pressure or less pressure in the new paddle balls now?
The transition of the tennis, I mean, they started for many years. They always played with tennis balls, but I think when they came out with the rules in 1991, 1992, they start trying to put all the rules together. They created a sort of like a niche paddle ball, which is just it's a tiny bit smaller, but if you put them next to each other,
can barely tell the difference.
You can't even tell the difference.
Okay.
And actually nowadays, some people actually play with tennis balls. Some of the tennis balls, they are a little bit too fast. But I mean, honestly, you can play with both. I mean, you won't even see the difference.
Gotcha.
One of the things interesting that happens, it's because it grew so fast in Spain and Argentina in the late 80s, early 90s, both associations of both sports, even though they were called the same, actually, they were not called the same, but they were played the same way. They had different rules. And just to give you an example, Argentinian paddle. First of all, let's talk about the name. In Argentina, it used to be called paddle, Paddle, like an actual paddle,
like an English paddle.
Exactly. In Spain, it used to be called, like it is now, Padel, like Padel. Yeah. So that was one of the things that when they got together, they said, okay, we have to standardize the sport and we're going to call it either or. So they decided to paddle. The other thing they standardize are some of the rules. In Argentinian paddle, similar to pickleball, what it is right now, the servers cannot come up to the net. So after you serve, you have to stay back, and you can come up after the third ball.
Is that what happened in paddle at the beginning?
In Argentina, yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, wow.
That sucks.
Yeah, it is. But in Spain, you can serve and come up to the net.
Gotcha.
So when they were playing each other, they have to readjust to, are we playing the Argentinian rules or the Spanish rules?
Right.
And that's how the way it is.
So when did they get into turf? For a long time, cement. So when did they get into that?
Well, but let's just review a little bit.
Okay.
Another of the rules, which is pretty interesting, that in Spain, the side walls or the side screen, it was 3 meters, right? 3 meters, or that's what, 9 feet?
Yeah.
And in Argentina, it was only down to 5 feet.
Mm,
So in Argentina, it was much easier to hit it by 3
right.
because the wall
Of
was
course.
much lower.
Yeah.
And in Spain, it was much more difficult. So that was the other rule that they have to agree.
So I'm glad they changed it to higher because the paddles became a lot more, more tactical and stronger, and everybody
Exactly.
would be taking the ball out by 3.
Exactly.
You know?
It was so easy for the Argentinians because the side screen was lower. The other thing that they had, which were very, very interesting, the side cement wall, back then it was a cement wall, in Argentina was
A lip?
no, it was 3 feet more in front of it.
Gotcha.
So now when they serve cross court to you, if they hit that wall, you have to step. Right now, you step only once before you hit it right off the side wall. You got to make 2 or 3 steps for you to hit it because the walls were like much more inside.
Inside, right.
So that was the other rule that they have to agree. Okay, which one are we doing it? In Spain, it was playing the way we play it now.
No, okay.
So with that.
So I see that they made a lot of changes based on the way the Spanish played, right?
Yeah, they have to adapt too.
Yeah.
But the other thing that the Spanish need to adapt, Spanish courts, in between, on the sidewall, in between the cement and the screen, there was a 5 centimeter gap.
The lip,
they call them pico, where actually Spanish players, they will hit right there.
Yeah, they'll play that. That's part of the thing.
And that ball will hit that lip and just move forward.
Come back to your side.
Exactly. The Argentinians didn't have that. So now when they played the Spanish, they were going crazy, try to do that. So that's one of the things they adapted, and they shuffled it, in the same line. Argentina had it on the same line. So it took a while for them to get together.
So did they both play on cement floors?
They both played on cement floors in the beginning, cement walls and all that. Argentina was the one who came out with the Crystal Palace by Horacio.
Yeah.
And then it was a huge change because now you can enjoy the game.
Yeah.
From all over.
So how about the turf? When did they say, "Hey, we're gonna use turf now"?
Initially, in the beginning, because you were playing on cement floor and walls, people will get injured pretty fast. Because of the turns, the jumping, and all that. Imagine trying to play paddle on cement.
I probably couldn't.
And a lot of people they were trying to get injured, so they decided to put some type of turf, and they play with different options, different heights and all that, until they came up with the 10 millimeter turf with sand, so you can
bounce a little more,
bounces a little more and all that. So that was pretty much the big changes in the beginning until they standardized the sport.
So another question I guess people have, and I have, and maybe you know the answer is, why didn't it really take off in Mexico like it did in Spain and Argentina?
That's a very interesting question, which I don't know. I think Argentina and Spain had much more tennis players back in the day.
Okay.
Where it was easier for them to start playing this other sport.
Gotcha.
That it wasn't. That it was easier to pick up for a tennis player. Same thing is happening right now, where Mexico never had any good tennis players. Tennis wasn't really part of the society.
Gotcha.
And Spain and Argentina still has a huge tennis population.
Right.
But as a matter of fact, padel in Spain right now is the second most played sport after soccer. It has passed tennis after 40-50 years that tennis has been the second most played sport in Spain.
So let's talk about that. Why is tennis kind of decreasing in popularity, and and where are these viewers and players going to paddle and pickle, and why is that happening? I remember, and I'm going to give you my experience back in the day, and I'm not sure if this is why it's happening, or this is the reason why I'm out of the loop when it comes to tennis. Is when I was younger, that's when I started playing. There was, I used to watch Lendl and McEnroe and Connors and Chang, and they had all different styles of playing, right? They have personalities, which brought great drama into that sport, So it was, you were going for this type of character because you liked him, right? And I think, and it was different styles of playing. There was, at the net, there was lob, there's all defensive. Now, as it went moving forward, it started to get more baseline playing, right? everybody kind of plays this the same way almost. I mean, I don't see anybody else playing any other way besides baseline, so it can kind of get a little boring to watch, I think. And then also, I think, big sponsors came in, like in Nike and other brands, and I think each player had to like behave, right? They couldn't like show their character, like McEnroe or Connors or whomever, And I think that left the drama and excitement out of the game. And I believe that's one of the reasons why I kind of, stopped watching tennis and started moving into, different sports. Now I watch paddle and you see them. I mean, they're very emotional, they're very loud. It's pretty awesome to watch, So that's my view on why I think, maybe tennis is getting a little bit less popular and are moving to different sports. What do you think?
I think that the tennis industry for a couple of decades, I would say it's been either on a stalemate or decreasing, because of the difficulty to really play the sport and the amount of time and money that you have to spend at least to start enjoying the sport. Where now you have these new racket sports like tennis, like padel and pickleball, which are within half an hour you're having a great time.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That hasn't changed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now.
Yeah.
There's always tennis courts and the costs are always the same.
Yes, but that was the only option.
Tennis?
Tennis was the only racket sport actually. Now.
I mean, there's squash and racquetball and so forth, but tennis dominated that.
Yes, but I mean, they're not as popular as tennis has become. From the 60s and 70s and 80s, and the way the media pushed, the sport. I mean, who would like to see a squash game or a racquetball game? I mean, it's not as exciting as watching a tennis game.
Well, not nowadays. No, I would rather watch McEnroe play Connors or Agassi, because you're gonna have some great drama there. Then let's just say some of these newer players just sitting the ball back and forth.
But you got to also take in consideration that tennis has been around for almost 200 years. And you go to Roland Garros and it was built in 1902. Wimbledon has been in the 1800s, late 1800s. I mean, those are cathedrals of tennis that they've been pushing the game for so long. Same thing as the U.S. Open. First in Forest Hills, then at Flushing Meadows. It has the length on the background there, but now it's another competition. You know what I mean? They have to compete and they have to stay put up with it.
Yeah, I think it's also the ease of starting to play. I think definitely you're right on that. I mean, it's a little bit more difficult to start playing tennis, and you go out there and you've never played tennis and you want to start, and you're picking up more balls than anything.
It's true.
But if you play paddle, you can get a game going. You can get a rally going. It's a little bit easier to start, for sure.
It's extremely fun. It's easy to pick up. And like I said, I mean, when I'm in the court, I'm coaching a beginner. Within half an hour, they're playing paddle. They're having a great time. I mean, they're really enjoying the game. Where in tennis, for you just to keep the ball inside the court, it will take you a long time.
Definitely.
It's
definitely,
it's interesting.
So let's talk about tennis players on playing tennis on the paddle court, and how people are transitioning and learning how to play paddle. Some people are not, and the difficulties it is of transitioning, because I went through that, and I think a lot of tennis players playing paddle go through that or are still going through that. There's a few shots that are unique to paddle, that are not in tennis, and those are some of the shots they may have difficulty with. And but the biggest thing is probably the walls, right?
It is.
So if you come back, if you've played racquetball before, that could help you a little bit, or even squash, even though the ball doesn't bounce as much. Or
platform tennis.
Or platform tennis, that's right. It'll be helpful. But if you're playing tennis, your reaction is not to let that ball pass you, and so you're hitting shots that are high risk shots, because you don't want it to pass you, instead of taking your time and playing off the back wall. And if they do, it's trying to figure out where the ball's gonna go, especially if they're hitting with a slice or what have you, or if it's coming from an angle. So I think the back walls is really a big thing for tennis players, for sure.
I think for the tennis players, there are two major things. First of all, they need that's what I tell them. You got to change the tennis chip. in your brain. You have to be able to slow down. It's not about, in tennis, you're trying to win the point as fast as you can. In paddle, you have to be patient. You have to, prepare the point, set it up, wait for the right moment when to execute it and put more pressure. That's the thing that it's easy to pick up, but it's difficult to master and understand that part. You know what I mean?
100%. You talked about a chip. That's exactly what it is. They need to take that tennis one in and put the paddle in, because they've been used to playing tennis so fast. So everything is fast for them. And they don't understand until they understand, okay, the ball's coming high and I gotta meet the ball, right? Versus I gotta chase the ball, right? And so until they get that, and slow down the game, as you say, and be a lot more patient when it comes to winners, because it seems like they want to, everything is a winner, right? For them, that will better their game. And until they get there, they're gonna make a lot more forced errors.
And I think the major difference for the tennis player, when you're coming into the paddle court as a tennis player, in tennis you're accustomed to what we call the collision, meaning that in paddle you have three ways the ball is coming to you, right? In tennis you have only one way. The ball is coming, you collide with the ball. The ball is coming in front of you, and you strike that ball in front of you, right? In paddle you have three different ways. Same thing as tennis. When the ball is coming to you and you strike it, then the ball is coming from behind you, that you have to chase that ball, which is the ball is passing you, so you have to go forward to chase that ball or learn how far it's going to go forward. And then you have the ball that is coming from the side, either to the left or to the right. So you have three different angles that you have to really master. In tennis, you have only one. Right. Ball's coming, you hit it. In paddle, ball's coming, you hit it. Ball's coming from behind, you hit it. Ball's coming from the side, you hit it. The dynamic is completely different, and that's what the tennis player needs to learn.
100%. It's also about defense. Most tennis players they don't play defensive anymore. They're mostly offense. So paddle is a lot about defense. You have to defend. You have to know when to defend and when to attack, right?
Exactly.
So most tennis players are just attacking. And until they learn to defend and wait for the right opportunity to attack, they won't better their game.
The other very important point and I see on tennis players every single day, you're trying they're playing as a tennis in a paddle court, and you're trying to win points from the baseline, which in tennis you can, right? You can win points from the baseline.
You do.
Same thing, your returns, you're trying to return as hard as possible for you to learn to win the points. In paddle, 99% of the points you win them at the net. Very few points you will win from the baseline, because if you're at the baseline, you have two players at the net.
Yes.
So you have to be able to defend well, going back to your point, defending from the baseline and attacking at the net. And the tennis player is trying to hit passing shots from the baseline.
Yes.
And then the paddle player, what it does is just let it pass, and that ball is coming back, and you haven't gained anything. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's exactly what happens.
And I see these guys trying to hit, 150
a full swing
return, and the guy just let it pass and then brings it back, and they still at the net. So that's all the little things that they have to change.
The other things are the aerial shots. Tennis players have transition are great paddle players once they learn these things, and they do great volleys and great smashes, right? But they want to smash everything, and that's the other thing. It's understanding what shot to hit, and smashing at the baseline or in the back is a high risk shot, unless you can take the ball out or bring the ball back. So most of the time they're doing this, and you get an experienced paddle player. As soon as they see you arc your back and you're gonna hit that ball hard, they're already running up to the net and waiting for the ball, and you'll learn that very quickly.
Yes.
And then you'll feel like, okay, well, what do I do at this point? They're not sure what to do. Hitting a smash is a high risk shot at the back. Even a tennis player is gonna be maybe a 50%.
Correct.
They're gonna make it or not. And in paddle, sometimes you win with other people's errors. And so a lot of times these tennis players are smashing the ball a lot, and there's the bandeja and the vibra, which is unique to paddle, which needs to be learned to it needs to know when to use the smash, the bandeja or the fibra.
Very important for you guys tennis players. If you're coming from tennis into paddle, you need to be able to slow down, okay? Not to rush it. And I think for you guys to understand the concept of paddle compared to tennis, in tennis you have a maximum of 8 complete strokes that you need to master. Forehand, backhand, slice. It's about eight different shots. In paddle, you have 32 shots that you need to be able to master. Yeah. Only within the forehand from the baseline, okay, there are seven type of shots that you need to master, which is the back wall, the ball is coming from you, double side wall, double backside wall, and so on. So those are the things that you have to understand, and the only way to understand that is just by practicing and taking lessons. Very, very important, because you will pick it up very easily, but you have to understand the concept and how the walls work.
Yeah, and you can always watch our video lessons that we have here on our YouTube. But that's a really important thing. I mean, I think me coming into as a tennis player into paddle, I only knew my 8 to 10 shots, and that's all I used. And I did well because, tennis players do well in paddle. They make great paddle players, and they make even better ones once they start learning how to play actual paddle. Yeah. So now let's go with the pickle, right? From pickle to paddle, right? So that's I played with pickle players, and they seem to have the chiquitas and the slow playing down for sure. Even the volleys as well. But it's the aerial shots that they have difficulty with, and until they learn that, and the back walls, of course.
I mean, pickleball, you don't get any lofts too either. So
right, exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. And so they have the anticipation, of course, and they have good touches with the ball, without a doubt. But they lack the aerial shots and the back walls, and those are the areas there that I think they have to work on to improve their paddle game.
Another question that we get very often, let's go back a little bit on the history of paddle. It's, when is the World Cup of paddle? How does it work? How does it play and all that? The World Cup of paddle is played every 2 years, and it's been played since 1992. And they play in different parts of the world. In the first few 10, 15 years, it was played either in France or Spain or Argentina or Italy and things like that. So it's every 2 years. Last year, Argentina beat Spain. And just to give you a little bit of the big difference right now in paddle compared to the rest of the world, since they started in 1992, Argentina won 11 times the World Cup, and Spain won only 4 times. And in women's, Argentina won 8 times, and Spain has won 8 times. Those are pretty much, that's it, the only 2 champions and runner-ups on the World Cup. In the past World Cup, what we have seen an unbelievable level of new countries and new players coming on and playing at a professional level, at a World Cup level, like Sweden, Italy, France, Brazil, Uruguay, Qatar was there playing, Saudi Arabia was there playing, Japan was there playing. It's pretty interesting what is happening worldwide with paddle and at a World Cup level. That's something very interesting to start paying attention. But right now, because of the history of the sport in between Argentina and Spain, they had already 30, 40, 50 years of paddle heritage on their blood. So that's why there is such a big difference. But look, it's coming to an end pretty soon.
It's pretty exciting. I've seen all those other countries now participating in the World Cup, and that's awesome. And just recently, I think we talked about paddle being in the Olympics.
Yeah,
because we have enough countries now that play it, and enough continents that play it. So that's really exciting. I think that's going to give a lot of exposure to paddle, which it needs. And we hope that people get excited about it. Yeah. I think it'll make a lot of noise, and hopefully inspire people to create more clubs.
Just to give you a little bit of the background, how a sport becomes an Olympic sport. For a sport to become an Olympic sport, it has to be played, or let's say in the men's size, it has to be played in at least 4 continents. and in at least 75 countries, only for the men's side to become a men's Olympic sport. In the women's side, it has to be played in at least 3 continents and in a minimum of 40 countries around the world. And just to give you a context, what where from now, today, more than 50 years since paddle has been created, we have over 30 million players playing worldwide and in over 90 countries. If you think about it, 90 countries out of a total of 195 countries, that's a huge number of people playing paddle around the world. 90 countries, it's a tremendous amount, almost half. Yeah. It's pretty much half. Another good sign is that the International Olympic Committee has recognized paddle as an international Olympic sport, and the status was obtained on September 13, 2019. So therefore, the sport of paddle is only steps away from being recognized as an Olympic sport. Now, the big question is this: is it going to be an Olympic sport in 2024, which is next year?
I hope so.
I think it is.
I hope
and
so.
If not, it's going to be an invitational Olympic sport, but it will be at the Olympics. I guarantee you that, because I got that through some good sources.
That's going to be really big if it is in 2024. It's going to bring paddle to another level.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. And it needs it. It needs it.
Yes.
It's already going forward. It needs another push.
Yeah.
So.
And honestly, for all of you listening to these podcasts here in the United States, the bar is very low in the United States to become a paddle player, meaning a good paddle player, because the competition is not as
it's still amateur.
It's still amateur compared to the world. So maybe if you start playing paddle,
yeah, it's true,
and you become very good at it, you can be representing the United States in next year's Olympics.
Definitely.
So I know some of you guys that they're playing great paddle. And I told you before that you have a good prospect to become an Olympic paddle player in the 2024 Olympics. In the 2024 Olympics.
It's a great opportunity for somebody, because this is great timing.
Yeah.
It's just getting there. You could ride right on that train.
Exactly. Same thing happened last year in the World Cup of Paddle in Abu Dhabi. I think it was Abu Dhabi or Qatar. This is one of the first times the United States participated at that level, even though we got killed and they kick our butts. But we had the experience. We had the entertainment and the experience to take some of the players that we have here playing at the top level to go and play with these monsters of the World Paddle Tour. So that was a very, very good experience.
Yeah. If you do make it to the Olympics and you become a professional player, and let's say the top 10 or 20 best players in the World Paddle Tour, how much do they make? How much can you expect to make out of a living? And now, and how much were they making maybe 5 years ago? Because I think there's a big difference. And then how much do they expect to be making in the future when this gets more popular?
Well, I mean, I got the rankings from 2022, how much professionals play in prize money. Just to give you the number one couple, LeBron and Galan, they made $350,000 each.
So now, is that just prize money? Or
only prize money.
Okay, so not sponsorship. So
no.
What percentage is prize money? Maybe 30 or 40%?
No, even more. They make at least 5 times what they make in prize money on sponsorship. I mean, they're huge. That's why you see their shirts with all different type of sponsorships.
Sure.
And we can talk about on a next podcast about sponsorship packages and how much they charge and all that. That will be interesting. But yeah, they make at least five times. 5
times more.
Yeah, 5 times more, or so that they're over the.
So you're looking at like $1 million, 1.5 in sponsorships, and maybe 300,000 in prize money.
Yes, so they're somewhere in there. Yeah, especially if they are top player. Obviously, it's like comparing, Rafa Nadal or a Djokovic in tennis to a number 50 in the world.
And do you know where where those numbers were maybe 5 or 10 years ago before this
less than half.
Less than half. And
Less
we're
than
hoping
half.
for the future.
Yes.
This is gonna grow, and the prize money is already starting to go up.
Especially with the Premier Paddle Tour and all that.
Right.
And let me give you a little bit of some history here. What is happening right now with the Professional Paddle Tour, with the WPT and the Premier Paddle. As you know, there is a Premier Paddle now competing with the World Paddle Tour. And just to give you a little bit of the background story here, in 2005 is when, the paddle became professionally recognized worldwide. They started with the Padel Pro Tour, started in Spain and in France and Italy and 3 or 4 countries. That's when they started with the Pro Padel Tour, and that's when it became really well known worldwide. And the tournaments that were played in Spain, Argentina, and the first year. We had Carolina Navarro and Cecilia Reiter, one from Argentina, the one from Spain, becoming the number 1 couple in the world, and Juan Martin Diaz, future the reserve, and Fernando Velasteguin became number 1 couple. The Pro Padel Tour lasted for about quite a few years.
So those were the pioneers, right?
They were the pioneers, yes. And something happened that then the World Padel Tour showed up, and they start arguing between each other and suing each other, and the World Padel Tour start paying more money to the Padel Tour players.
Sounds like Premier Padel and World Padel Tour right now.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to go with.
Sorry, it's happening again.
It's happening again, and it happened already in 2005 with the World Padel Tour coming into play. And start convincing the players to make more money, and that's why all the players, they became World Padel Tour.
Competition is always good.
It's always good, and now something exactly it's happening with the Premier Padel Tour. Now players are playing the World Padel Tour and also the Premier Tour because they're making almost twice as much more money playing the Premier.
Yeah, and Premier has a good backing. They acquired part of World Padel Tour, so I think they're going to figure things out, and I think it's going to be better for paddle.
Yeah, for paddle, the players and all that. One of the things that some of these players are very happy, especially the top players. Obviously, they're making more money, but the second tier players or the players that they make it 1 or 2 rounds, now they're making enough money for them to travel to different tournaments.
Right.
Where before in the World Padel Tour, they were not making enough money for them to.
They had to
become a professional paddler.
They had to sleep in the cars.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what
couches.
It is. They were complaining that in between they have to pay their airfare ticket, hotel accommodations, food, coaches, and all that. They were just breaking even barely. So that's something exciting that is happening, and it's happening as we speak right now. So that's super exciting.
Great for paddle. Great for paddle.
Guys, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications.
And remember, it's free $99. It doesn't cost you anything to hit that subscribe button.
Thanks for tuning in to Padel Smash Academy. We hope you'll find our videos informative, helpful in improving your game and learning all things paddle.
So until next time, keep improving your game. And remember, learn, play, and share.